Hi everyone, this is your boy Martin from Hype Inc. and we're here today with another amazing tutorial on how to get started with web development. Okay, so what is web development? Web development is about creating websites, web applications, and a whole lot of stuff. It's one of the fastest growing industries in the world. And I mean, like, some of our typical use cases like Google, Facebook, Instagram, all would be impossible without web development. Okay, so what is web development comprised of? So at the moment, web development is basically just based on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, as well as other languages like ASAP, .NET, and Visual Basic. So what are all of these things, right? So HTML is basically just a markup language which basically changes text to look a certain way. So, for example, you can do something like change the text size bigger, change the color, etc., etc. in HTML, and we will have tutorials later on this. So just stay tuned, right? What is CSS? CSS is more about presentation, so in other words, how a web page looks. Um, and then moving on to JavaScript, JavaScript, for example, is more interested in interactivity of the website. And then PHP and other languages like ASAP.NET and Visual Basic is often used for more back end programming where you can now make your websites more dynamic and actually add data to the web pages. So, what can I do with web development? This is a very typical question I get. So you can basically do anything that you can think of, anything that comes to mind. So, for example, you can go and create the next Facebook, you can go and create the next Google. You know, the possibilities are endless, but obviously at the same time, we also have to set our expectations realistically. So, yeah, if you're interested in doing that, it's gonna take a lot of work, time, and effort. But you can definitely create ideas that did not exist before, right? And as we've mentioned already, common use cases of these would be Google, Facebook, and Instagram. So, how do I get started? Right? So, the first thing that you will need is an IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment, so like Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio. And we will be having another tutorial on how to actually go and install some of these. Some of these tools are actually free of charge, so do make use of them. Next, you can purchase a web development book or take a web development course, right? Um, that is a very good option. I think it'll really reinforce your knowledge. But you can also, if you want to go on the more free side and you're slightly more on a budget, you want to go with YouTube tutorials and W3 schools like the majority of us have. And last but not least, you'll just learn by practicing and tinkering, right? So the more that you play around with something, the better you essentially become at it. Cool. Moving on. So let's jump straight into it. So for this tutorial, we'll basically be focusing on writing our first HTML page, and then we'll add some CSS onto that just to show you some of the styling, and we'll show you a bit about JavaScript interactivity, and we'll talk about PHP and dynamic and static pages throughout the video. So do stay tuned, and while you edit, please press the subscribe button below. Um, it's gonna be very, very, very interesting video. So yeah. So how to get started, right? So basically, how to get started on getting the IDE. So the first thing you wanna do is you wanna go to Google and go and type in Visual Code, right? And this software is basically free to use. I use it for most of my coding, web development coding, that is. So you just basically, depending on what you use, I use a Windows machine, so you can just click on download, and I'm not gonna download it now, but once you click download, it'll basically pop up and install it. And I already have it installed, so you're gonna click start download. It'll just download to your browser, and once it's downloaded, you're just basically gonna run it and install it. So once you're done with that, this is how the result should look. if I can just find it, so I just have it best here. As you can see here, the app is, and it is installed on my PC already. Okay, so first things first, your first HTML page. Now I'm just gonna go and type in basic HTML layout, right? So W3 Schools is like the #1 resource to go to. As you can see, they have amazing resources here. And let's start. Okay, so we'll start with this. And sorry, this just takes some time sometimes. Let's just go to desktop. Hopefully I can find it. Definitely not the one. Where is this thing? My god. Okay, no, it's fine for now. Let me just go and look in the desktop. That is the wrong folder. YouTube. So there is some kind of folder here. So we'll just basically say file, save as, and you can save it anywhere in your desktop. You can save it anywhere you want. I just want simplicity so that I can, have everything in order. So I'm just gonna save it under lesson 1, and you're gonna save it as HTML, right? And then you're gonna call it my first web page, my first web page, right? And you want this to be in HTML, right? So you saw suddenly the colors actually changed. And now you're probably wondering, what is this? What is all of this, right? So as I mentioned earlier, HTML is just a markup language. So it just basically puts tags around simple text to actually illustrate what each of these things mean, right? So in this case, you have a heading 1, which just refers to the size of the text, and your first paragraph. So let's see how this looks in the browser. So this is how it looks at the moment. My first heading, my first paragraph, right? And so we're just gonna incrementally build on this and then make something like, I don't know, a simple list, right? Like something like li ordered list, uh, right? And then within this, you're just gonna make elements, and then you can just say like I am 1, I am 2, I am 3, right? And let's see how that works. And I simply press Control S in a Windows machine to save, or you can just click on File, Save. As you can see, Control S, that's the shortcut. So let's refresh the browser and see what happens. Okay, so we saw we added on I am 1, I am 2, I am 3, right? So you're probably wondering, okay, how is this actually comprising up a whole website that I see, like something like this, right? So basically all of this is pretty simple, and you need to first get the basic concepts of what these tags mean. So all of this is just text that has been marked up with HTML and CSS and a bit of other programming languages that basically illustrate everything. And don't be frightened by any of these big terms. It is actually really really simple. So let's add something onto it. So like let's say maybe an image, right? So let's add an image onto our web page for now, right? So this is an image. So yeah, we will busy with the image, and yeah, let's add this image tag to our text and then simply see how our web page looks at the moment. Let's try and refresh, and it did not work for some reason. Can anybody tell me why? Probably because the image is not on our desktop on our PC. So like let's just download the image. So like images or quotes of something, right? You have some quotes and you're just interested in, for example, illustrating one of the quotes that you have or you really like. So let's just save that on the desktop, YouTube, lesson 1. And yeah, we're just gonna save it as that, and then we're just gonna call it, okay, downloads, JPEG, and yeah, we're just gonna say inspirational quotes. So you're probably wondering what SRC means, and it doesn't stand for SRC. It's source. It means where the image is actually situated. And if you see this, it just means it's within the same folder of where the image is. So like if the web page is here, this is download. It means it's in the same folder. And if you see folders, for example, a slash, like let's say YouTube, whatever, it would just mean it's in a folder somewhere, right? So yeah, alt means alternative text. So this will be inspirational quote or something, right? Uh, and then width, height, obviously, that's just how big the image is. So let's see how it looks now. Oh god, this thing does not want me to flourish. Let's see. Really? Oh, it's because it's download. So yeah, you have to actually be very specific on things like these. So yeah, as you can see, suddenly you have an image popping up. So essentially, this is how web development works. You basically continuously add up, like let's say we want 30% of the page, and then you also want 30% here. Let's see, refresh. So suddenly your image got bigger, and you basically incrementally now add all of these things. Now, let's go and add something like a button right onto the web page and be like, okay, button, click me, right? And you can do something called a href, right? Which basically adds text. So a button is just a simple thing. So you can now add something like an href, which is basically a link to something. So like let's say Amazon.com. So when you click this button, it'll take you to Amazon.com, right? Or something. Or even Takealot, or wherever you really want to go. I don't really care, honestly. But yeah, let's see. So now you have a button that says click me, and when you click me, it takes you, supposed to take you to Amazon. Let's change that to takealot.com to just illustrate the point. I think you'll be getting it anyway. Um, so this break tag just means go on to a new line. Let's see how that works. So this basically went to a new line, and if you click it, well, it really seems like this thing is just not allowing. But yeah, basically you kind of get the point. Let's just say www, just for www.takealot.com, and then try again. File was not found. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't really care about this. I'm very much done. So let's try this one more time, and if it does not work now, then I am just giving up. But I do think it's because I forgot the first parameters. So let's try that again. And now if you click it, it'll take you to takealot.com, right? So forth, you can add on and on and on. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope to hear from you guys. Please comment and subscribe if you think the content was very interesting, and what comment on anything else that you'd like me to do. There is going to be some new content again dropping very soon. So yeah, just hit those subscribe buttons and those likes up, and peace out, man.